Greetings, all! Today, we will be examining the common bug-type Pokemon Wurmple, the Worm Pokemon. Its relatively uncommon evolution Silcoon and Cascoon, collectively known as the Cocoon Pokemon. Its final uncommon bug flying type evolution Beautifly, the Butterfly Pokémon. And its equally rare final bug poison type evolution Dustox, the Poison Moth Pokémon. Though they might only be fodder to most other Pokemon, the members of the Wurmple family are unique insectoids that can force trainers into an awkward guessing game when it comes to the evolution.
Wurmple have reddish-pink bodies with a nubby, rough outer exoskeleton, with 5 pairs of small grey limbs they use for locomotion, and a pair of large yellow barbs positioned as a tail on their back end. They additionally have a small yellow horn on their head with rounded mouth parts, a large reddish-pink spine above their other horn, and a pair of black eyes with yellow sclera. Their evolutions, Silcoon and Cascoon, are almost identical in form, with their bodies being encapsulated in a thick cocoon of hardened string that virtually immobilizes them for the most part, and forces them to wait patiently for evolution. However, it can be seen that while they both share red eyes, Silcoon typically have a white-colored cocoon, while Cascoon have a purple-colored cocoon. The evolved form of Silcoon, Beautifly, have black wings adorned with an array of yellow, red, and blue wing markings that shine brightly in the light like stained glass. Their main body is black with a small grey belly area, 4 grey digilous limbs, and a large grey head with black antennae fused at the base that come to an ovoid end, as well as large blue eyes and a long thin black proboscis that curls at the end. The evolved form of Cascoon, Dustox, have large green wings with a tighter look to them, having dark green ends and a series of red oval marks across the broader part of their wings. Their ovoid purple bodies have 4 segmented red legs, as well as the head that comes to an ovoid point, with 2 segmented yellow antennae, a large mouth, and 2 pairs of yellow-rimmed black eyes with 3 lenses each. Wurmple are highly unique in that the form they take upon evolution is completely dependent upon their personalities, a trait that is yet to be fully understood by even experts. As such, the pathway of evolution for Wurmple in the eyes of the average person is random. You never really know what you're going to get until it is time for them to evolve. There is little evidence available to explain this strange phenomenon, but it might have something to do with the species' relationship to Caterpie and Weedle. It seems almost coincidental that Wurmple can learn both Tackle and Poison Sting, which are respectively unique to Caterpie and Weedle. It is also a strange coincidence that both of Wurmple's final evolutions share the same types as Butterfly and Beedrill. Recent studies, however, have revealed that these 2 factors are not coincidental at all. In fact, genetically Wurmple are very closely related to both Caterpie and Weedle. It is quite possible that both Caterpie and Weedle could be seen as genetic offshoots from a common shared ancestor with Wurmple, as they share many traits found throughout the species' evolutionary line. The question then lies with why Wurmple have not been crowded out by their evolutionary contemporaries, and how Caterpie and Weedle diverged from the shared common ancestor in the first place. The first part can be easily answered with the fact that more than enough food prevents interspecies competition, but the second aspect, however, remains the subject of debate.
With this stated, Wurmple are remarkably similar to Caterpie and Weedle in terms of both living style and offense.
Wurmple spend most of the time eating leaves and tree sap for nutrition, stocking up energy for evolution. If they feel inclined to do so, however, Wurmple can also use the spikes in their rears to peel the bark off trees, feeding on the delicious sap that oozes out. When confronted by predators, especially bird Pokemon like Starly and Swellow, Wurmple raise their tail spikes upward and release a potent poison from their tips. This is done in the hopes that their predator will accidentally slam into the spikes, damaging and poisoning themselves in the process. On the ground, Wurmple can rely on either a tackle attack or a poison sting attack to repel offenders, but in truth they rarely ever attack. For Wurmple, survival is the goal. As such, Wurmple will usually detain opponents by spraying a white silk from the mouth that becomes sticky once it comes into contact with the air, in essence a string shot technique, and then do the best to crawl away to safety while any potential threat is entangled. This is especially seen in their hidden ability Run Away, though typically their access to Shield Dust as a base ability is more useful in ensuring that they aren't afflicted by a status condition from their own kind in the wild.
When Wurmple evolve, they cover themselves in silk and let it harden, completely immobilizing their bodies within a cocoon. The type of cocoon, however, is again completely dependent upon their personality.
While waiting for evolution, both Silcoon and Cascoon remain in their cocoon state and do not fight back in the wild, no matter how badly they might be hurt. This is rarely an issue defensively, as their cocoons are surprisingly sturdy and resistant to damage, and they gain access to the Harden technique, or even the Iron Defense technique in rare cases, immediately after evolving for further protection, as well as the Shed Skin ability as their only ability. The only parts of their bodies that are exposed are their eyes, which they use to keep a vigilant watch over their surroundings. This does them little good, however, as they can't risk moving even in an emergency. They do have the capacity for mobility and the ability to still attack, but such movement damages these creatures internally, making them excessively weak and frail upon evolution. It is once thought that Silcoon and Cascoon actually starved themselves while waiting for evolution in order to conserve energy, but this would be a self-defeating purpose in their case. It is now known that both creatures actually ingest dew that collects on the surface of their cocoon, using it much like a strainer. Furthermore, it is now understood that Silcoon and Cascoon possess surprisingly high body temperatures, most likely due to the excess cellular energy being generated internally for evolution. It should finally be noted that the appearance of cracks within the walls of their cocoon is a sure sign that evolution is approaching and will occur within the next few minutes. Trainers that have little patience should keep this fact in mind when in the possession of either species. Silcoon are generally easygoing and hold no grudge against attackers, as they care little about their present state. For them, the entire point of life is waiting. Silcoon can always be found nestled among trees and with thick strands of silk wrapped around multiple branches for support. Though this places them out in the open, their final evolutions are considered by other wild Pokémon to be less threatening than that of Cascoon, so they are generally left alone. Silcoon are probably the most easygoing member of their family and are very easy for trainers to work with, even though they are capable of doing much in battle, which can in turn make them a great learning experience for developing trainers.
In contrast to Silcoon, Cascoon are generally disliked by wild Pokémon and are therefore hunted by predators more so than Silcoon because of the evolved form's poisonous traits.
As a counter to this, Cascoon silk has superior luster and texture compared to Silcoon for greater protection, and clothes made using Cascoon silk are regarded as top-notch in the field. While Cascoon can still suspend themselves within tree branches like Silcoon, albeit in much thicker clusters of branches, they instead prefer to literally lay low, hiding within leaf piles of bushes and covering themselves with whatever plant refuge is lying around. Even if they are attacked, Cascoon are not easily breached, which proves to be a problem for most predators because of these insects' personalities. Cascoon are nowhere near as mild-tempered as Silcoon and hold grudges against every single creature that attacks them in this state. Once they evolve into Dustox, these creatures will immediately hunt down their past attackers from memory and deal out their revenge. Beautifly spend most of the time flitting around flower fields on spring and summer winds, collecting and consuming both pollen and nectar with their long proboscis. Their numbers tend to dwindle during the winter months as a result, but quickly explode once spring arrives. This has made them a hallmark of the season's arrival in many parts of the world. Beautifly are generally quite friendly towards humans and rarely ever come into conflict with them, oftentimes flying around and landing on top of people with no regard to their own safety. This, in combination with their beautiful patterned wings, has made Beautifly extremely popular among contest halls, as they are quite easy to train and have access to some particularly beautiful moves such as Morning Sun and Silver Wind, not to mention rather cute-looking Gust and Air Cutter attacks they gain access to immediately after evolving.
People even sometimes choose to attract Beautifly by placing potted flowers outside simply for the pleasure of observing them, which never seems to fail as Beautifly just can't get enough of fresh flower pollen and nectar.
However, this doesn't mean that Beautifly are pushovers that can easily be overcome. In truth, these creatures are actually quick to anger and are rather aggressive. When threatened in any way, Beautifly will jab at opponents with their proboscis like a tiny knife and, using it as much as they do in collecting pollen and nectar, suck out their internal juices. While this certainly can lead to death if the wrong juices are extracted from their prey, Beautifly do not intentionally go hunting for them. This is because they receive far more nutrients from pollen and nectar than they receive from meat or bodily juices. Even so, it is a nasty attack in the right applications, plus it makes Beautifly one of the few bug-type Pokémon capable of learning moves like Absorb, Mega Drain, and Giga Drain alongside Leech Life. Unfortunately, aside from a few normal flying and bug-type moves, this is the only real offense that Beautifly possess, leaving them highly vulnerable to several prominent offensive types, even if their moves are at least enough to let their greedy feeding tendencies run wild, chasing away Pokémon like Cottonee that get close to their food resources. As far as their combat abilities are concerned, these creatures are able to use their aggressive personalities to boost the power of their natural forms in the heat of battle, possessing Swarm as their only base ability, while those that can become even more aggressive during mating season can also have access to Rivalry as a hidden ability. As far as the stats are concerned, however, it is clear that their quick development hampers their capacity to do much with their bodies, as while they do have at least above average base special attack stat for a fully evolved bug and flying type Pokémon, they have little else going for them, and thus are unlikely to perform well in serious combat.
Dustox are nocturnal from the moment they emerge from their cocoon, as night is the only time of day where they are actually safe.
Because Dustox are generally regarded as a nuisance by other life forms, they are actively hunted during the day. Virtually none of their natural predators are nocturnal though, which gives Dustox an edge in survival. While these creatures could have their reputation defended, there is little point in doing so. They are in all fact annoying to a fault, right down to the blustery gust and confusion attacks they gain access to immediately after evolving. Dustox are unusually attracted to bright lights, so they tend to congregate around campfires and within lighted parks and cities at night, stripping the leaves off every nearby tree for food. In the case of large swarms, this activity can leave entire parks in ruins within a few short hours. Though they might occasionally use their antennae like radar to search for small insects to eat, Dustox generally stick to eating leaves and nothing else. The other problem factors lie in their abilities, namely their poisonous and psychic powers. Dustox constantly release poisonous powder from the wings as they flap, causing choking fits in anyone who gets too close to them while in flight. Furthermore, if Dustox feel threatened, they will violently flap their wings and release exceptionally toxic scales and powder. If inhaled at considerable volumes, this material becomes capable of severely poisoning almost all types of life form, and is thus classified as a modified version of the toxic technique.
Although this, Poison Powder and Venoshock are the only poison-type moves that Dustox normally learn naturally, the fact that they constantly release poisonous powder even when doing nothing makes them a serious health hazard to both humans and Pokemon alike.
In addition to this annoying power, Dustox are one of the few species of poison-type Pokemon, along with Pokemon like Venonat and Venomoth, capable of naturally learning the Confusion, Psybeam, and Extrasensory attacks, making them a threat to all types of Pokemon except Dark types, which they can usually eliminate with their Silver Wind and Leech Life attacks anyways. Add in the ability to learn the Moonlight technique and relatively high defensive stats for a Bug type, and it quickly becomes clear why Dustox are disliked by so many. As far as their combat attributes are concerned, these beasts are able to use the toxic powder on their frame to help protect them from status afflictions in the right cases, and can even sometimes use their compound eyes to magnify the vision if they are particularly strong sight, giving them access to Shield Dust as a base ability and compound eyes as a hidden ability. In terms of stats, much as with Beautifly, these creatures are not really built for serious combat because of how quickly they develop, and thus underperform in almost all areas, though they do have at least an above average base special defense stat for fully evolved bug and poison type Pokemon, so there is at least some minor merit to their forms in battle.
Wurmple and their evolutions have always felt pretty quirky to me, and while you might not always be able to tell just what they're going to become as they grow initially, once they evolve once, you will know exactly what you're in for if you're looking to get something specific out of them. On the one hand, this can make them a bit frustrating to deal with at first, as you won't know if you get to have a Beautifly or a Dustox until this point. But given that they don't take all that long to evolve, it's at least a quick process, so you won't be spending much time on waiting things out. That being said, while these creatures are quite weak and don't have a ton to offer in the way of combat attributes, they do manage to reach a fully evolved state rather quickly, and thus can be of great use to many beginning trainers in turn. Though it might take some effort to really get their best possible moves, and by then, they likely won't be strong enough to hold their own against other fully evolved Pokemon. Despite this, they still have their merits, as Beautifly is simply gorgeous in appearance, and are a lot deadlier than they might come off as initially, with plenty of energy-draining attacks at their disposal to keep their forms healthy and in top shape as much as possible. Dustox, on the other hand, can both really use the moves like Toxic and Venoshock to make life hectic for others, and fight back with some limited psychic power, so they've got a few useful tricks up their sleeve. Overall, these insectoids might not seem all that dangerous, but for young trainers, they can certainly be made of good use and given a great purpose, so long as you don't mind them devouring plant resources wherever they go.
Simple to take care of and ready to evolve in almost no time, the members of the Wurmple family are curious critters that can prove to be a fun guessing game for trainers looking to spice up their team at an early stage of a journey. You might need some patience capturing and raising them if you're looking for a specific final evolution, but both of them have decent merits regardless and can be of use to those willing to take the time to raise them properly.
Just do yourself a favor and make sure you give them the love they need to grow close to. Otherwise, you might be in big trouble either way if they get mad, either getting your insides sucked out just a little bit, or going to the hospital for poisoning after breathing in a cloud of toxic powder.
Thank you for watching this video. It brings me great joy to be able to speak to you all in the world each and every time we meet like this, to explore the many different facets of both the world of Pokemon as we know it, and the world as we live it, through every adventure we have with Pokemon by our side. If you'd like to, please subscribe, ring the bell and all that jazz, to keep yourself updated on content uploads and other materials of the like. You can also follow me on Twitter if you'd like to know right away when something new is uploaded, and my written works, from which most of this is based on, can be found on DeviantArt. Links to both can be found in the description down below. Remember that the world of Pokemon is a place full of wonder and mystery, and you never know what to expect. So, stay vigilant, keep watch, and always be prepared for the unexpected. Until next time, trainers and friends of all sorts, have a wonderful time.